Tonight, we explore the rise and fall of one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known, the Roman Empire. From its legendary beginnings on the banks of the Tiber River to its glorious peak and eventual decline, the story of Rome is filled with intrigue, triumph, and tragedy. Join me as we travel back in time to witness the power struggles, military conquests, and cultural revolutions that shaped the world. Relax, unwind, and drift off as we unfold the fascinating story of Rome, its legends, its rulers, and the empire that once ruled the world. Founding and mythical beginnings. The founding of Rome is steeped in myth and legend, telling more than just the birth of a city. It forms the very core of Roman identity, a tale echoed throughout the empire's history. According to tradition, Rome was established by twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, sons of the god Mars and the Vestal Virgin Rhea Silvia. Abandoned as infants and left to perish by the banks of the river Tiber, their fate appeared sealed. Yet destiny intervened. A she-wolf discovered and nurtured them, sensing their divine importance. Sheltered within the Lupercal cave on Palatine Hill, the twins survived against all odds. After their time with the she-wolf, Romulus and Remus were raised by a shepherd and his wife. They grew into courageous, strong, and determined young men, natural leaders whose journey led them back to their birthplace, to found a new city. However, their visions clashed. Romulus favored one hill, Remus another. Their disagreement escalated into violence, culminating tragically in Romulus killing Remus. Thus, Romulus alone became the founder and first king of the city bearing his name, Rome. Romulus selected the strategic elevation of Palatine Hill for his new city, outlining its boundaries and establishing firm foundations for growth and defense. Early in his rule, Romulus secured Rome's survival through successful military campaigns, quickly expanding its influence. Yet, populating his fledgling city posed a significant challenge. To build his community, he initially welcomed outcasts and fugitives. Realizing the need for families, he resorted to abducting women from the neighboring Sabine tribe in the infamous abduction of the Sabine women. Though initially causing conflict and reprisal, peace eventually prevailed through the intervention of the women themselves, who persuaded their families to reconcile with the Romans. Though marked by violence, this episode embodied Roman self-perception, a relentless determination, and the conviction of a divine destiny. Romulus's actions, marked by both boldness and ruthlessness, set a lasting precedent. He established key political institutions, most notably the Senate, initially comprising 100 advisors, forming a foundation that would shape Rome's future governance. Beyond political institutions, Romulus created the Roman legions, an organized and disciplined military force crucial for securing Rome's early borders and enabling territorial expansion. Under his reign, Rome's identity as a formidable warrior society began to crystallize, setting the stage for centuries of military dominance and imperial growth. Rome's mythical origins profoundly shaped its cultural identity, providing Romans a powerful narrative that affirmed their divine favor, resilience, and strength. The legend of Romulus and Remus transcended mere storytelling. It symbolized the unity of divine will and human ambition, themes which persisted through the Roman Republic and into its imperial zenith. From a modest settlement on the Tiber, Rome rose to dominate much of the known world, forever influenced by the legacy of Romulus, whose mythic and political contributions remained deeply ingrained in Roman culture long after his reign had ended. The Roman Republic. After Romulus's death, Rome was ruled by a succession of kings. Over time, the Roman people's tolerance for monarchy diminished. The reign of the final king, Tarquinius Superbus, was marked by cruelty and oppression, igniting widespread discontent. In 509 BCE, a revolt erupted, driven by citizens determined never again to submit to tyranny. The monarchy was abolished, and from its ruins arose the Roman Republic. The Republic introduced a new political system, remarkably innovative for its time. Power was distributed across multiple institutions to prevent any one individual from becoming too powerful. Central to this system was the Senate, comprised mainly of patricians, Rome's wealthy noble class. Senators advised annually elected consuls, the Republic's highest-ranking officials. Although consuls wielded substantial authority, their limited terms and shared leadership prevented autocracy. A defining feature of the Republic was the ongoing struggle between patricians and plebeians. Plebeians, the common people, had minimal political influence at first. In 494 BCE, their frustration erupted in the secession of the plebs, a mass withdrawal that compelled patricians to grant them political concessions. The creation of the Tribune of the Plebs allowed elected officials to veto Senate decisions, significantly rebalancing power. Rome's republic was also defined by military strength. Initially modest, the legions evolved into a disciplined and formidable fighting force. Roman military success relied on strict training, hierarchical organization, and adaptive tactics. Early campaigns secured control over neighboring tribes, such as the Etruscans and Samnites. As Rome grew in power, it inevitably clashed with major rivals, most notably Carthage. The Punic Wars, a series of 3 conflicts with Carthage, defined Rome's expansion across the Mediterranean. The First Punic War, 264 to 241 BCE, began as a conflict over Sicily. Despite initial naval inexperience, Rome rapidly built a powerful fleet, securing victory and territorial gain. The Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, brought one of Rome's most formidable enemies, Hannibal of Carthage. His legendary crossing of the Alps with war elephants remains one of history's most daring military feats. Despite crushing Roman forces at Cannae, Hannibal failed to capture Rome. Roman perseverance and strategic leadership, particularly by Scipio Africanus, ultimately led to Hannibal's defeat at Zama. The Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE, ended with the complete destruction of Carthage, affirming Roman supremacy across North Africa and solidifying its imperial stature. Yet territorial expansion brought new challenges. The wealth gap between the elite and common citizens widened. Landless veterans, displaced farmers, and political corruption undermined the Republic's foundations. Reforms by the Gracchi brothers sought to address inequality, but both were killed, foreshadowing deeper unrest. Ambitious generals such as Marius, Sulla, and eventually Julius Caesar exploited these divisions. Their struggles for power sparked civil wars that ultimately dismantled the Republic. Caesar's rise was the most decisive. After his conquests in Gaul, his popularity soared. In 49 BCE, he crossed the Rubicon River with his army, famously declaring, "The die is cast." This act of defiance against the Senate ignited a civil war. Following victory over Pompey and his rivals, Caesar assumed control of Rome. Though he implemented important reforms, His concentration of power unsettled many. In 44 BCE, he was assassinated by senators who hoped to restore the Republic. Instead, they plunged Rome into further chaos, setting the stage for the rise of the empire. The rise of Augustus, the fall of the Roman Republic, brought on by civil war, political corruption, and internal strife, paved the way for one of Rome's most transformative leaders, Augustus. Born Gaius Octavius in 63 BCE, he was the grandnephew and adopted son of Julius Caesar. Following Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, the 18-year-old Octavian suddenly found himself heir to Caesar's name, influence, and ambitions. What followed was a masterclass in political maneuvering and military strategy that would permanently reshape Rome. Octavian's first task was to secure his position in the chaotic aftermath of Caesar's death. Though Caesar had been beloved by many, his assassination left Rome divided. In 43 BCE, Octavian allied with Mark Antony and Lepidus to form the Second Triumvirate. Their initial mission was to avenge Caesar's murder, which they accomplished at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE, defeating the forces of Brutus and Cassius. Yet the Triumvirate was an uneasy alliance. Tensions soon flared, particularly between Octavian and Antony. Antony's deepening association with Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, alarmed many in Rome. Concerns grew that Antony's loyalty was shifting eastward. As political rhetoric turned to accusations of betrayal, conflict became inevitable. In 31 BCE, the struggle culminated in the naval Battle of Actium. Octavian's forces, led by his trusted general Agrippa, decisively defeated Antony and Cleopatra. The pair later took their own lives, leaving Octavian as the sole ruler of Rome. In 27 BCE, the Senate bestowed upon him the title Augustus, meaning the revered one, marking the official beginning of the Roman Empire. Augustus's brilliance lay not only in his military victories, but in his political acumen. He preserved the outward appearance of republican governance while holding absolute power. By maintaining institutions like the Senate and appointing loyalists to key positions, Augustus avoided the image of dictatorship, even as he consolidated control. His reign inaugurated the Pax Romana, a golden age of relative peace and stability across the empire. Augustus restructured the Roman military, establishing a professional standing army loyal to the emperor. He reorganized provincial administration, ensured fair taxation, and reformed legal and civic institutions. These efforts helped restore order and prosperity after years of upheaval. Augustus also transformed the city of Rome itself. "I found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble," he famously claimed. His ambitious building projects included temples, public baths, forums, and monuments such as the Ara Pacis, celebrating peace and imperial power. Culturally, Augustus styled himself as a moral reformer. He enacted laws to promote marriage, penalize adultery, and encourage family life among the elite. His reforms reflected a desire to restore traditional Roman virtues and reinforce the moral fabric of society. Nonetheless, his reign was not without setbacks. In 9 CE, Roman forces suffered a devastating defeat in the Teutoburg forest, where Germanic tribes ambushed and annihilated 3 legions. This disaster ended further Roman expansion into Germania and led to a more cautious military policy along the empire's northern frontier. Despite such losses, Augustus ruled for over 4 decades, guiding Rome from chaos into an era of order and splendor. Pax Romana. The reign of Augustus marked the beginning of a remarkable era of peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. Spanning from 27 BCE to around 180 CE, this period saw the Roman Empire reach the height of its power and stability. From the windswept shores of Britain to the deserts of Egypt, and from the hills of Hispania to the rivers of Mesopotamia, the benefits of Roman rule were felt across the Mediterranean world. At the heart of the Pax Romana was Augustus's success in ending decades of civil war. The chaos that had fractured the Roman Republic was replaced with a new, more stable political order. While Augustus held supreme authority, he cleverly preserved many republican traditions and institutions, offering the illusion of continuity. The Senate, though diminished in influence, remained active in governance, providing a sense of legitimacy to the new imperial structure. With internal stability secured, Rome turned its attention to development and consolidation. One of Augustus's most lasting achievements was the reorganization of the empire into a system of provinces, each governed by loyal officials. These regions were protected by a professional, standing army that was better trained, regularly paid, and loyal to the emperor rather than individual generals. This system secured Rome's borders and maintained internal order. While large-scale wars became less common, the Roman military remained active along the frontiers. Skirmishes and uprisings continued, particularly in provinces like Judea and Britain. Yet these conflicts did not disrupt the broader peace that defined the era. The focus shifted from expansion to defense, enabling Rome to consolidate its vast territories. The Pax Romana also fostered unprecedented economic growth and trade. The Mediterranean became a bustling hub of commerce, with goods, resources, and ideas flowing between Rome and its provinces. The empire's infrastructure, its vast networks of roads, bridges, and aqueducts, facilitated the movement of armies, merchants, and citizens alike. Roman roads, or viae, were engineering marvels that connected the empire, allowing orders from the capital to reach even the most distant territories efficiently. Economic prosperity flourished, trade routes were well established, and a standardized currency simplified commerce. Goods such as grain, wine, olive oil, pottery, and silk were exchanged across regions. Roman law provided a structured framework for contracts, trade, and property rights, creating security for merchants and encouraging investment. Cultural life thrived during the Pax Romana. Literature, art, and architecture flourished under the patronage of Augustus and his successors. Poets such as Virgil, Horace, and Ovid were celebrated for works that shaped Roman identity and values. Virgil's Aeneid, in particular, served as a national epic, linking Rome's destiny to divine origins and promoting Augustus's vision of imperial greatness. Monumental architecture, like the Forum of Augustus and the Ara Pacis, symbolized the power and permanence of the empire. The Roman military, though less focused on conquest, ensured peace and stability within the empire. Garrisoned troops helped maintain order and acted as a deterrent to rebellion. Their presence also facilitated the assimilation of local cultures and the spread of Roman customs, laws, and language. This integration helped unify the empire and strengthen its identity. Yet, the Pax Romana was not without challenges. The vast size of the empire made governance increasingly complex. Local uprisings, like the Jewish Revolt, 66 to 73 CE, tested Roman control and occasionally erupted into violent suppression. And while Augustus had balanced autocratic power with republican tradition, future emperors would often struggle to maintain that equilibrium, leading to growing tensions between central authority and institutional integrity. Despite these difficulties, the Pax Romana stands as a golden age in Roman history. It enabled Rome to consolidate its power, extend its influence, and foster a vibrant cultural and economic environment. Under Augustus and his successors, the empire not only thrived, but also laid the foundations for a legacy that would echo through centuries. The Pax Romana was more than a time of peace. It was an era of innovation, artistic achievement, and the lasting imprint of Roman civilization on the world. The Julio-Claudian dynasty. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, Rome's first imperial family, ruled from the rise of Augustus in 27 BCE to the death of Nero in 68 CE. This era marked both the consolidation of imperial power and the gradual erosion of early imperial stability. The five emperors of this lineage, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, left behind a legacy ranging from brilliant reform to notorious excess. The dynasty began with Augustus. His reign brought peace, reform, and prosperity, setting the standard for those who followed. Upon his death in 14 CE, his stepson and adopted heir Tiberius assumed power. Tiberius, Rome's second emperor, was a capable but enigmatic ruler. His early reign featured careful governance and military success, including securing the empire's eastern frontier. However, his later years were marked by increasing paranoia and withdrawal from public life. He eventually secluded himself on the island of Capri, where ancient sources report tales of cruelty and excess. Despite these accounts, some of which may be colored by hostile historians, Tiberius maintained a well-organized state. Caligula, Tiberius's grandnephew and successor, initially inspired great hope. The son of the beloved general Germanicus, he was welcomed enthusiastically by the Roman people. However, his reign from 37 to 41 CE quickly descended into chaos. Caligula became infamous for his erratic behavior, cruelty, and extravagant lifestyle. He alienated the Senate, emptied the treasury, and reportedly made bizarre declarations, including appointing his horse, Incitatus, to a high office, though some scholars believe this may have been satirical. His short rule ended with his assassination by members of the Praetorian Guard. Power then fell to Claudius, Caligula's uncle, who had long been overlooked due to his physical disabilities and perceived timidity. Surprisingly, Claudius proved to be an effective and reform-minded ruler. From 41 to 54 CE, he stabilized the empire and oversaw the conquest of Britain in 43 CE. He improved administrative efficiency, expanded citizenship rights to provincial elites, and invested in public works such as aqueducts and harbors. Despite his competence, palace intrigue plagued his reign. His fourth wife, Agrippina the Younger, allegedly poisoned him to ensure her son Nero would inherit the throne. Nero, the final Julio-Claudian emperor, ascended the throne at just 16. His early reign showed promise under the guidance of advisors like Seneca and Burrus. Over time, however, Nero's rule descended into autocracy and excess. He prioritized artistic pursuits over governance, performed on public stages, and spent lavishly. His reign was marked by political purges, including the suspected murders of his mother and wife. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE further tarnished his image, with rumours accusing him of starting it to clear space for his grand palace, though evidence is inconclusive. Nero's growing unpopularity led to widespread revolts. In 68 CE, the Senate declared him a public enemy, and he took his own life. With no clear successor, the Julio-Claudian line ended, plunging Rome into civil war. The Julio-Claudian dynasty left a complex legacy. Augustus established a durable imperial framework and brought stability, while Tiberius and Claudius strengthened administration and expanded the empire. Conversely, the reigns of Caligula and Nero exposed the dangers of unchecked power and imperial excess. The dynasty's end ushered in the turbulent year of the four emperors, setting the stage for a new ruling house and a different vision of imperial leadership. Roman military. The Roman military was a cornerstone of the empire's power, renowned for its discipline, organization, and effectiveness in both conquest and control. More than just a fighting force, it was a defining institution that shaped Roman politics, culture, and society. Through superior tactics, innovative strategies, and engineering prowess, the Roman legions played a pivotal role in expanding and maintaining the vast territories of Rome. At the core of this military machine was the legion, a powerful unit typically consisting of 4,500 to 6,000 soldiers. Each legion was divided into 10 cohorts, which were further broken down into centuries of around 80 men, led by centurions. This hierarchical yet flexible structure enabled Roman forces to adapt to a variety of battlefield conditions and execute complex maneuvers with remarkable efficiency. The Roman legionary was a highly trained and well-equipped soldier. Standard gear included the gladius, a short stabbing sword, the pilum, a heavy throwing spear, and the scutum, a large rectangular shield. These weapons were designed for close-quarters combat and tactical effectiveness. In addition, soldiers carried a dagger, pugio, and wore protective armor, which evolved over time from chainmail to segmented plate. The combination of weaponry, armor, and rigorous training made the Roman soldier one of the most formidable in the ancient world. Training and discipline were fundamental to Roman military success. Legionaries drilled constantly in formation tactics, long-distance marching, and fortification construction. One of the most iconic Roman formations was the testudo, or tortoise, where soldiers aligned their shields overhead and in front to form a nearly impenetrable barrier. This formation was particularly effective during sieges, but was rarely used in open battle due to its slow movement and vulnerability to flanking. Beyond the battlefield, Roman soldiers were engineers and builders. The military was responsible for constructing roads, viae, forts, and bridges that helped unify the empire. These roads, durable and efficient, facilitated not only troop movement, but also commerce, communication, and cultural exchange throughout Rome's vast domains. Military infrastructure helped integrate new territories and reinforced Roman presence long after conquests had ended. Leadership was another key strength. Roman generals were often strategic innovators and charismatic leaders. Julius Caesar, perhaps the most famous, expanded Rome's territory through his brilliant campaigns in Gaul. His use of speed, surprise, and psychological warfare, along with engineering feats such as rapid bridge construction, showcased the flexibility and might of Roman arms, and paved his path to political dominance. The Roman military also ensured peace and stability within the empire. As Rome expanded, it faced constant threats from rival powers and rebellious provinces. Legionary garrisons established in conquered territories acted as both a deterrent and a means of assimilation. Local populations were often granted Roman citizenship over time, helping foster unity and loyalty to the empire. Despite its strengths, the Roman military faced increasing challenges as the empire grew. The vastness of Roman territory made defending its borders difficult, especially along the Rhine and Danube frontiers. The shocking defeat at the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 9 CE, where 3 legions were annihilated by Germanic tribes, marked a turning point and underscored the limits of Roman expansion. By the 3rd century CE, the empire entered a period of crisis. Reforms were necessary to counter external invasions and internal instability. Emperors like Diocletian and Constantine restructured the military, creating more mobile and specialized units. However, increasing reliance on foreign mercenaries gradually undermined cohesion and loyalty. By the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire's military had weakened significantly, and repeated barbarian invasions hastened its collapse. Nonetheless, the legacy of the Roman military endured. Its organizational principles, engineering accomplishments, and tactical doctrines influenced countless armies throughout history. Roman warfare remains a subject of study in modern military institutions, a testament to its lasting significance. The Roman army, with its blend of discipline, innovation, and resilience, remains one of the most remarkable military forces the world has ever seen. The crisis of the 3rd century. Following centuries of relative peace and prosperity under Augustus and his successors, the Roman Empire entered a period of profound upheaval in the 3rd century CE, known as the crisis of the 3rd century, 235 to 284 CE. This era was defined by relentless political chaos, economic collapse, civil war, and external invasions. It marked one of the gravest threats to the empire's existence. The crisis began in 235 CE with the assassination of Emperor Alexander Severus by his own troops, triggering a violent cycle of military coups and civil wars. In this unstable climate, emperors were often installed by their legions rather than through legal succession. These so-called barracks emperors, military commanders who seized power, rose and fell with astonishing speed. Over a span of 50 years, more than 26 emperors claimed the throne, with most ruling for only a few months or years before being overthrown or killed. This rapid turnover in leadership destabilized the empire and left it vulnerable to both internal fragmentation and external assault. In the West, constant pressure from Germanic tribes strained military resources. In the East, the Sasanian Empire posed a serious threat to Roman holdings in Mesopotamia. Meanwhile, along the northern frontier, invasions by the Goths, Vandals, and other barbarian groups grew increasingly frequent and destructive. Simultaneously, the empire's economy entered a state of decline. Endless warfare drained the treasury, while emperors attempted to fund their armies by debasing the currency, reducing the silver content of coins. This led to rampant inflation and a loss of public confidence in the Roman monetary system. Prices soared, tax revenues dwindled, and local administration began to break down, weakening Rome's grip on its provinces. The political disintegration reached a peak in the mid-3rd century, when the empire effectively fractured into 3 competing states. The Gallic Empire, comprising Gaul, Britain, and parts of Hispania, broke away in the west. In the east, the Palmyrene Empire, led by the formidable Queen Zenobia, asserted independence and even captured Egypt. The central Roman government, based in Italy, struggled to assert control, with its authority rapidly eroding. Yet, amid the chaos, a few strong leaders emerged. One of the most effective was Emperor Aurelian, reigned 270 to 275 CE, who launched a series of military campaigns to reunify the fractured empire. He defeated the Palmyrene Empire, restored Egypt to Roman control, and crushed threats from Germanic tribes. His construction of the Aurelian walls around Rome symbolized a renewed focus on defending the imperial heartland. Aurelian's reign marked the beginning of the empire's slow recovery. The true turning point came with the rise of Diocletian in 284 CE. Recognizing the impossibility of ruling such a vast empire alone, Diocletian introduced a bold restructuring of imperial governance known as the Tetrarchy. He divided the empire into two halves, east and west, each ruled by an emperor, Augustus, and a deputy, Caesar. This system was designed to ensure greater regional control and smoother succession. Diocletian also enacted sweeping reforms aimed at stabilizing the economy and strengthening the military. He introduced new, more stable coinage, attempted to curb inflation through price controls, and reorganized the military into smaller, more mobile units better suited to frontier defense. His administrative reforms expanded the imperial bureaucracy and helped improve provincial governance. Though Diocletian's solutions were not permanent, they arrested the empire's downward spiral and laid the groundwork for continued survival. The crisis of the 3rd century left the Roman Empire permanently altered. While it emerged intact, its centralized power, unified identity, and economic strength were significantly weakened. The crisis exposed the vulnerabilities of empire and foreshadowed the transformations still to come. Constantine and the rise of Christianity. The aftermath of the crisis of the 3rd century left the Roman Empire weakened and in need of sweeping reform. While the empire had survived external invasions and internal chaos, it was clear that its traditional structures were no longer sufficient. The man who would reshape both the Roman political system and its cultural and religious identity was Emperor Constantine. Born in 272 CE to the Roman general Constantius Chlorus and his wife Helena, Constantine came of age during one of the most turbulent periods in Roman history. When his father died in 306 CE, Constantine was declared emperor by his troops in Britain. However, his path to uncontested power would be far from straightforward. Over the following years, Constantine navigated a series of political rivalries and military conflicts, ultimately emerging as the sole ruler of the Roman Empire. A defining moment in Constantine's rise came in 312 CE at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. Facing his rival Maxentius for control of the Western Roman Empire, Constantine reportedly experienced a vision of a cross in the sky, accompanied by the words, "In this sign you will conquer." Interpreting this as a divine message from the Christian God, he ordered his troops to mark their shields with the Chi Rho symbol. Constantine's victory not only secured his dominance, but also forged a lasting connection between imperial power and Christianity. In 313 CE, Constantine and his eastern co-emperor Licinius issued the Edict of Milan, granting religious tolerance throughout the empire. This decree effectively legalized Christianity, ending centuries of sporadic persecution and allowing Christians to worship openly. While Constantine's motives likely blended genuine belief with political strategy, his support for Christianity was unprecedented. For the first time, the Christian Church received imperial endorsement and protection. Constantine's backing went beyond legal tolerance. He actively promoted the Christian faith, providing financial support to the clergy, commissioning the construction of churches, and granting privileges to Christian communities. Among his most significant projects was the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, built on the site believed to be where Jesus was crucified and resurrected. In 325 CE, Constantine convened the First Council of Nicaea, bringing together bishops from across the empire to address doctrinal disputes, particularly concerning the nature of Christ. The resulting Nicene Creed established foundational principles of Christian belief, affirming the divinity of Christ and promoting unity within the growing church. Though not yet baptized himself, a decision he postponed until his death, Constantine's role in church affairs marked a dramatic shift in imperial policy and religious life. Despite his Christian patronage, Constantine did not completely abandon traditional Roman religion. He continued to honor pagan festivals and deities, reflecting the empire's religious diversity and the need for cautious transition. His policies reflect a pragmatic balancing act between Rome's pagan heritage and its Christian future. One of Constantine's most strategic decisions was the relocation of the imperial capital. In 330 CE, he inaugurated Constantinople, formerly Byzantium, on the Bosporus Strait, as the new seat of power. This new capital was well positioned for defense and trade, and symbolized a new era in Roman history, one increasingly defined by Christian leadership and Eastern influence. By the time of Constantine's death in 337 CE, Christianity had transformed from a persecuted sect into a dominant religion backed by imperial authority. Constantine's legacy as the first Christian emperor reshaped the Roman world and laid the groundwork for Christianity's central role in Western civilization. While his motivations were complex, blending personal belief and political calculation, his reign marked a decisive turning point, a moment where empire and faith became inseparably intertwined. The split of the empire. As the Roman Empire expanded, so too did the challenges of governing such an immense and diverse realm. The strain of defending vast borders, responding to internal unrest, and managing economic pressures made centralized rule increasingly unsustainable. Recognizing these difficulties, Emperor Diocletian enacted a transformative reform in 285 CE. He divided the Roman Empire into two administrative halves, the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. This strategic division aimed to strengthen governance and defense, but it would eventually lead to lasting consequences. Diocletian's decision was prompted by the mounting threats on every frontier. Barbarian incursions, civil wars, and fiscal decline had exposed the limitations of a single ruler. By splitting the empire, Diocletian hoped to streamline administration and improve military response. He retained control of the more prosperous and strategically located eastern half, while appointing his trusted colleague Maximian as emperor of the western half. To further secure stability, Diocletian introduced the Tetrarchy, a system of rule by 4 emperors. Each half of the empire had a senior emperor, Augustus, and a junior emperor, Caesar, with the latter expected to succeed the former. This system was designed to ensure smoother succession and decentralized authority. In practice, however, it often sowed the seeds of rivalry and competition. When Diocletian retired in 305 CE, the tetrarchy soon began to unravel. Ambitious generals and regional leaders competed for supremacy, leading to renewed civil war. Amid this turmoil, Constantine emerged as a dominant figure. After a series of decisive victories, he consolidated control of both East and West by 324 CE, temporarily reunifying the empire under his sole rule and ending the tetrarchic experiment. Although Constantine restored unity, the divide between East and West proved enduring. In 330 CE, he founded a new imperial capital in Byzantium, renaming it Constantinople. Strategically located and economically robust, Constantinople became the political and cultural heart of the Eastern Empire. While the East flourished, the West continued to struggle under increasing pressure from Germanic tribes, declining infrastructure, and internal instability. The final and permanent division of the empire came after the death of Emperor Theodosius I in 395 CE, the last ruler to govern both halves. His sons inherited the empire, Honorius in the west and Arcadius in the east. From that point onward, the Roman Empire functioned as two distinct entities. The Western Roman Empire, centered in Rome and later Ravenna, faced growing instability and would ultimately fall in 476 CE when the Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the last Western emperor, Romulus or Augustus. The Eastern Roman Empire, however, endured. Known later as the Byzantine Empire, it preserved Roman law, culture, and governance for nearly 1,000 more years. With its capital in Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire became a bastion of classical heritage and Christian faith. The split of the Roman Empire marked a pivotal moment in world history. It signaled the decline of Roman power in the West, while allowing the East to adapt, evolve, and flourish. Though divided, the legacy of Rome lived on, reshaped by the challenges and transformations of a changing world. Barbarian invasions. While internal decline played a major role in the fall of the Western Roman Empire, it was the relentless pressure from external groups, the so-called barbarian invasions, that ultimately delivered the fatal blow. During the 4th and 5th centuries CE, waves of migrations and invasions by diverse tribal groups eroded Roman control. These movements were not mere raids, but complex migrations, often involving entire populations fleeing conflict, seeking new homelands, or capitalizing on Rome's waning strength. The term barbarian, used by the Romans to describe non-Roman peoples, encompassed a wide array of tribes from northern and eastern Europe and Central Asia. Among the most influential were the Visigoths, Vandals, Huns, Franks, and Ostrogoths. Each played a pivotal role in reshaping the political and cultural landscape of post-Roman Europe. The Visigoths were among the first major groups to challenge Roman authority. Pushed into Roman territory by the advancing Huns, they initially sought asylum within the empire. However, mistreatment by Roman officials led to revolt. In 410 CE, under King Alaric, the Visigoths sacked Rome, an event that shocked the ancient world and shattered the image of Roman invincibility. Though they later settled in Spain, the sack marked a psychological turning point. In 455 CE, Rome suffered a second sack, this time by the Vandals. Originally from Central Europe, the Vandals had migrated through Gaul and Iberia before establishing a kingdom in North Africa. From their base in Carthage, they dominated Western Mediterranean trade and cut off vital grain supplies to Rome. Their naval raids and the sack of Rome further undermined the Western Empire's already fragile economy and authority. The Huns, a nomadic people from Central Asia, instilled widespread fear across Europe. Under Attila, they launched devastating campaigns across both Eastern and Western Roman territories. In 451 CE, Attila was checked at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains, where a coalition of Romans and Visigoths halted his advance. Though Attila's invasion was repelled, the instability he caused pushed other tribes into Roman lands. This period of upheaval, often referred to as the migration period or Völkerwanderung, saw various tribes enter Roman territory, some as allies, others as conquerors. The Ostrogoths, Franks, Lombards, and others eventually established kingdoms in the remnants of the Western Empire. These groups adapted Roman institutions, laws, and Christianity, forging the foundation of medieval Europe. While the Western Roman Empire succumbed to these pressures, the Eastern Roman Empire fared better. With stronger fortifications, greater wealth, and more effective diplomacy, the East managed to survive the barbarian tide. Under Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century, the Byzantines even attempted to reclaim parts of the lost West, temporarily regaining territories in Italy, North Africa, and Spain. However, these gains were short-lived. The final blow to the Western Roman Empire came in 476 CE, when the Germanic commander Odoacer deposed Romulus and Augustus, the last Western emperor. Rather than appointing a successor, Odoacer sent the imperial regalia to Constantinople, symbolically ending the Western Empire. Despite the political collapse, Rome's cultural legacy endured. The barbarian kingdoms absorbed Roman traditions, law, and religion. Latin remained the language of administration and learning, and Christianity, now firmly rooted, continued to shape spiritual life. In the East, the Byzantine Empire preserved Roman governance, law, and culture for centuries to come. The barbarian invasions brought an end to Roman political dominance in the West, but they did not erase Rome's influence. Instead, they transformed it, blending Roman traditions with new identities and laying the groundwork for the medieval world. The fall of the Western Roman Empire. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE was not a single cataclysmic event, but the culmination of a long decline driven by internal weakness, external pressure, and institutional decay. By the 5th century CE, the Western Empire was a shadow of its former self, plagued by economic hardship, political instability, and military dependency on foreign mercenaries. As the empire weakened, its emperors grew increasingly reliant on barbarian leaders and their troops for protection. These alliances, while temporarily useful, gradually eroded Roman authority. The once proud Roman legions were now supplemented or even replaced by federated Germanic forces, whose loyalty was to their tribal leaders rather than to Rome. Rome's administrative capacity also deteriorated. Rampant corruption, burdensome taxation, and an ever-growing bureaucracy placed immense strain on ordinary citizens and local governments. Agricultural productivity declined, urban life diminished, and public infrastructure fell into disrepair. The once mighty economy crumbled under the weight of inflation and a shrinking tax base. Political instability further compounded the empire's troubles. Emperors came and went with alarming speed, often installed and removed by military force. Between 455 and 476 CE, a succession of weak rulers failed to halt the empire's disintegration. Power increasingly resided not in Rome, but in the hands of military strongmen and barbarian warlords. The symbolic end came in 476 CE, when the Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the young emperor Romulus Augustulus. Rather than claiming the title for himself, Odoacer declared allegiance to the Eastern Roman Emperor in Constantinople and ruled Italy as its nominal vassal. In doing so, he effectively dissolved the Western Roman imperial structure. Though Rome had fallen politically, its cultural and institutional legacy endured. Latin remained the lingua franca of scholarship, administration, and the church. Roman law influenced emerging European legal systems, and Christianity, now firmly established, continued to spread across the continent. The Catholic Church, rooted in Roman traditions, became a unifying force in the fragmented post-imperial world. Meanwhile, the Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, survived for nearly another 1,000 years. Centered in Constantinople, it preserved many aspects of Roman governance, culture, and identity, acting as a bridge between antiquity and the medieval world. The fall of the Western Roman Empire marked the end of ancient Rome as a political entity in the West, but not the end of its influence. In the centuries that followed, Roman ideals would be reinterpreted, revived, and celebrated by new civilizations. The idea of Rome, its laws, its language, its architecture, and its vision of universal empire would live on, shaping the destiny of Europe and the wider world. Legacy of Rome and the Byzantine Empire. Though the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476 CE, the legacy of Rome continued to shape the world in profound and enduring ways. Its language, law, engineering, architecture, and religious traditions permeated the cultures that followed, laying the foundation for Western civilization. Latin, the language of the Romans, survived in the church and scholarly institutions, evolving into the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. It remained the lingua franca of education, diplomacy, and science for centuries, reinforcing Rome's intellectual influence long after its political fall. Roman law provided the bedrock for many modern legal systems. The principles of Roman jurisprudence, such as equality before the law, legal contracts, and rights of the individual, were preserved and studied throughout the Middle Ages and Renaissance. The Corpus Juris Civilis, compiled under Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century, became a foundational text in European legal thought. The physical legacy of Rome also endured. Roman roads, aqueducts, amphitheatres, and temples, many still standing, testify to the engineering brilliance of the ancient empire. Their durability and design influenced infrastructure and urban planning in the centuries that followed. Roman arches, domes, and concrete construction techniques continue to inspire architects around the world. Culturally, Rome's embrace of Christianity had perhaps the most far-reaching consequences. From a persecuted sect, Christianity became the empire's official religion, deeply entwining the church with the state. After the fall of the Western Empire, the Catholic Church inherited much of Rome's authority and structure. The Pope, seated in Rome, emerged as a spiritual leader for Western Europe, reinforcing the city's central role in religious life. Meanwhile, in the East, the Byzantine Empire carried on the Roman legacy for nearly 1,000 years. With its capital in Constantinople, the Byzantines preserved Roman law, classical knowledge, and imperial traditions. The empire acted as a cultural and economic bridge between East and West, influencing Slavic and Islamic civilizations while defending Europe from Eastern invasions. Under leaders like Justinian I, the Byzantine Empire reconquered parts of the former Western Empire and initiated a golden age of art, architecture, and legal reform. The Hagia Sophia, built during his reign, remains one of the most iconic structures in architectural history. Byzantine scholars played a key role in preserving ancient Greek and Roman texts, many of which would later be reintroduced to Western Europe during the Renaissance. Their efforts ensured that the intellectual heritage of antiquity survived the turbulence of the Middle Ages. The Byzantine Empire ultimately fell in 1453, when Constantinople was conquered by the Ottoman Turks. Yet, even in its end, it passed on the torch of Roman civilization. The Eastern Orthodox Church, Eastern Roman laws, and Byzantine art continued to shape the cultural identities of nations such as Russia, Greece, and the Balkans. In sum, the fall of Rome was not the end of its story. Rather, it marked a transformation, a transition from empire to legacy. Roman ideas lived on, adapted and reinterpreted by those who followed. Whether in the courts of law, the cathedrals of Christendom, or the halls of learning, the spirit of Rome endured, echoing through history as one of the most influential civilizations the world has ever known. Thank you for joining me on this peaceful journey through the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. I hope you found this story both relaxing and insightful as we explored the history of one of the world's most fascinating civilizations. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anyone who loves history or needs a moment to unwind. And as always, feel free to leave your thoughts or questions in the comments below. Take a deep breath, let your mind drift, and let the stories of the past continue to guide you into